when I get back. Okay, see you guys. Bye. Bye. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Very good.
Nice to see you. Blessings to you.
Thank you.
Blessings, blessings. Hello, hello. Nice to see you. Blessings. So, just tell me when you want me to do my close-up.
You sure that's pointing correctly, huh?
It's got a little red button going, do. Hi, Mom. You guys seem to be weaving in a lot of new strands of consciousness. And when you weave in new strands of consciousness, you're able to do that because your own soul self has established a form of expansion that goes way beyond the way that the laws of physics are established. So as you keep developing with your ideas, with your experiences, simply being conscious of your God nature without necessarily having to practice it in a major way allows you to really put out all these amazing signals. And then when you get souls like yourself, who are more conscious of what you're doing, more conscious of how you're doing the driving, then what you're able to do is to really practice what's being written as the law of attraction. So when you get into a zone like that, then this is where you have to become more aware of your intentions, more aware of the fact that you are the creators of your life, more aware that what's going on around you, what's happened to you, your thoughts, your feelings, everything has simply been choices that you've made. It's got absolutely nothing to do with what humans have defined as destiny. It's all to do with choice. So you weren't destined to be together. You made a choice to be together. And you made that choice because you recognized something in each other's vibrations that was necessary for you each to have. So of course on the planet, you brought in the emotions and all the things that are to do with your human nature. So that's why you fall in love and will do all those things. But take all that away, you're not actually together because you want to be together. Sounds awful saying that, doesn't it? It's actually together because you realize that, no, I need this vibration. I need this frequency so that therefore I can be God more. But along the way, let's have fun. Let's have adventure. Let's have feelings. And that's why people choose to, come onto a planet like Earth, because it gives you the opportunity to take what you're feeling and turn it into something. So you're turning vibration into a relationship. You're turning a vibration into talent. You're turning vibration into experience. And through those experiences, what are you doing? You're actually creating more vibration. So if you always align right from the beginning with the highest vibration possible, then can you imagine what you must be able to create and therefore what you're able to actually access? So if you think about where you guys are at, you're wanting to access more. And so when you have that intention, so of course that's a vibration that's already moving out more and more all the time. So consciousness itself hears that. But then consciousness isn't some sort of random act of just flow and ebb and see where it goes. It's about how it's directed. So for yourselves, this is where as individuals, but also as a collective consciousness, you need to be aware of the way you're directing energy, where you're directing vibration. Already what you've understood is in the blend of your energies, you've established this, what humans call unique synchronicity, when you get souls that are very much in a similar vibrational pattern. And when you get into that vibrational pattern, then this is where synchronicity establishes really great events. Or as you discover, you finish each other's sentences, or you know what each other is actually thinking sometimes. And you have the same views and the same dreams and the same ideas, and you get the adventures in a similar way. So you create this even more extraordinary adventure and sharing that you can actually have. Then also what it does is that it amplifies your own God nature. And so that's when you become aware of the vibration that each of you represents and what it is you're actually offering each other. So instead of looking at, well, this is what I'm offering to you as your wife, and this is what I'm offering to you as a frequency, and the same from your perspective. So it's actually quite good to actually remember at times, we're actually vibrations, we're actually frequencies, because when you get into that idea, then you're able to access the file about what that represents. If you get too caught up into the man-woman stuff and all the human nature stuff, even though that's not a limited thing, it's more limited than being a vibration, you see. Because as a vibration, you don't have rules. And you see, the thing is about this, the more you see yourself as frequency, the more you see yourself as vibration, and step away from the idea of yourself as a human being, then this is where you're able to start accessing energy in a way where it creates for you a superhumanness. And that's when, I mean, can you imagine if your mum had done that? She wouldn't have died. She would have been able to take what she needed from what her experience was, and then she would have been able to move away from the dis-ease, and she would have been able to replace that dis-ease with a vibration that was more compatible. But you see, she was having a conflict of interest between what the cellular structure was actually doing and what her ideas were doing. So the vibrations were all sort of mixed up. And any form of disease is the same, whether it's mental, physical, whatever. It's all about disorganized vibration. And so, it's like weather patterns. When the weather patterns go astray, it's all disorganized vibration, disorganized energy. So when things are not in a rhythm, well, then, of course, you get upheaval in some way or another. And each of you have experienced that in your own ways, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually at times. When you've put yourselves into places of uncertainty or doubt or worry or fear, or caught yourself up into other people's nets of dense energies and all that sort of stuff. And so as you develop, you learn to cast all that off. And that's where, when I'm looking at where you're at now, you have cast more of that off. And as you cast more of that off, then what it does, it gives you a much clearer view of what feels natural to you, what makes sense to you. When you look at what makes sense to you, I'm not talking about it from the human perspective, but more from yourself as a vibrational frequency. And that's actually a really good question to actually ask yourself every day. Today, as a vibration, what makes sense to me? And then see what you get. And then, having said that, then ask your human nature. All right, well, in my human nature today, what makes sense to me? And sometimes what you'll see is there might be discrepancies between what you feel as a vibration and what you understand as a human being. And when you look at the discrepancies, you'll usually find that it's all to do with where you're trying to fit in as a human being, which is limited. So it's best to always look at it how you are the guiding force from a vibration, because what that allows you to do is rearrange your human nature in the ways that give you the well-being that you want. And to do this, again, this is where you humans use affirmations. But when you use an affirmation, a lot of people, toss off an affirmation like it's just, throwing a piece of rubbish away. Have a nice day now, and, I am God, and that sort of stuff. Whereas when you think about what a vibration is and what an affirmation is, and you realize it's an actually sacred contract that you're making with a frequency. And so you have to actually treat it for what it really is. So you have to be conscious of your peace with it and your power of intention when you are affirming something. And for an affirmation to really have an effect on you, you actually have to project it in your thoughts or out loud or whatever for about 5 minutes. And that really allows the energy to sort of be felt on all the levels that you represent, because you're also putting signals out to all the rest of yourself that's non-physical. And so, of course, they pick up on those signals, and they would automatically establish an alignment, so that therefore you receive what you're actually wanting. But for most people, they're probably able to do an affirmation for, at the most, probably a minute or two. But what they tend to do is they get distracted because their mind starts working and starts going off into tangents and thinking about what they're having for dinner or that TV program they watched or whatever, and then they get back into their affirmation, you see. And so that's why humans call it a discipline, because what you're really doing is that you're paying attention, you're establishing the ability to focus. And I think also too, humans think 5 minutes, but it doesn't sound long, but when you're actually focusing on it, it actually feels a long time as such, you see. So that's why it's always better to transcend the idea of time. And again, looking at where you guys are in now, and in all your journeys and stuff, you have your sort of loose plan, but you're actually quite flexible in where you're wanting to go and what you're wanting to do. So when you get into that vibration and relax with it, you just chill. This is no big deal. And people get so wound up about stuff. Blair was saying before when he took his wife to Taranaki, and they drove up to a place called Otaki, and they had breakfast there. Anyway, so Blair's phone started ringing because people want to make appointments. So he got a bit distracted. Anyway, they got in the car and they drove all the way up to Bulls. And then he realised he left his bag behind in the restaurant with all the money and all the credit cards and you name it, basically. You see. So he's like, oh, man. So he rang up and yes, we got it. So he had to drive all the way back, which was an hour, and then an hour back, you see, to Bulls, you see. So that put 2 more hours. And, his wife was all agitated. He would say, hey, look, we've got the weekend. There's no problem. So what if I, left this behind, etc., etc. So most people would get so wound up about experiences rather than, okay, well, I've done what I've done. Yeah, it's a bit of a bagger, but say la vie. Maybe I just needed to see that road again. And so it's, as I always like to say, it is what it is. You get there when you get there. It happens when it happens. And so, there's a phrase humans have created, which is don't sweat the small stuff. How do you still sweat the small stuff, please?
How do I think maybe I get too caught up on what I want. So when I take my time to get there or I don't get there, I start sweating the small stuff.
Yeah, okay. So instead, get caught up into what you are.
Yeah.
Because when you get caught up into what you are rather than what you want, then you realize that when you get caught up into what you are what you want. I am the power of life. I am my success. I am the greatness. I am, it's all happening for me. I get caught up into what I want, then what am I doing? Then I'm doubting, and I'm getting caught up into, what we'll say, too many thoughts, and so you end up getting into this massive energy that sort of confuses the energy, basically, see. Whereas if you always get caught up into what you are, well, then there's your launching pad to organize yourself, show a high level of leadership, and therefore you'll get what you want. But if you get caught up into worrying that you might not get what you want, well, then you won't get it in the time that you want it. And then, of course, you can do that. Then you wind yourself up even more. And then you start getting into doubts and fears and worries and too many questions, and then you drive him crazy.
Yeah.
And so this is where, and then you know what to say, because by this stage he's like this, you see, and you're like, and it's like watching Tiger Woods playing golf. And so you need to sort of be aware of, it's not wrong, but it's that thing about, I really just need to organize this better, manage this better. And remember what I've said to you both in the past, that all your power is in the present. So therefore, you just go to where you are. What about you? Where do you get caught up into the small stuff?
When you asked there that question, what came to mind was getting tangled up in trying to analyse how I'm feeling, as opposed to what you just covered, a couple of minutes ago, and just letting it be. Analyse yourself as a vibration, then analyse yourself as the human part.
Yes.
And that just clicked on right there for me perfectly.
Yeah. And remember, when you're feeling something, you actually put yourself to that place. So therefore, and I always believe that if you need to know what you're feeling, then you ask. And really, it's a simple matter of that. I'm feeling this. Is there anything I need to know? So you simply ask of your higher nature, is there anything I need to know here? And if it needs you to know something, it will tell you. It will give you an idea, it will give you a feeling, or it might just go, no. People don't like no's. Because in the sense of when they get no, then they sort of feel stuck. But I've got to be doing something, or I've got to be understanding something.
That's how I feel, yeah.
So it's very much about, practicing being, which gives you everything. Remember that phrase I've said to you both in the past. In order to be something, you know what it is to be nothing. So when you get into nothing space, it doesn't mean you have nothing, you are nothing. It just means that you're not caught up into all the rules and the roles and the systems and where am I going and all that sort of stuff. You're God's. It's a choice. Everything's out there. And it really comes down to a really high level of leadership that you have to show sometimes. When you show a high level of leadership, then what you realize is that the real you, the God you, the consciousness you, is actually leading the human part of you. And when you lead the human part of you, you actually have to tell that part of you. You don't ask it anything. You tell it. You tell it what your intentions are. You tell it the result that you expect from it. You tell it the way it's got to be. You know, and any leader who has succeeded has inspired people. And you look at that in every way, you know, humanitarian leaders, politicians, you know, celebrities, people who inspire people because they're sort of telling, they're not asking. I mean, can you imagine Alexander the Great, you know, with his major army and waking everyone up one way. Oh, hi guys. Hey, sorry to wake up so early, but we've got this big battle this morning. And I need you to go out there and burn some villages and, you know, rob and kill and slaughter, you know. Hey, no pressure. You know, just do it in your own time. I'm off from a manicure, you know, sort of stuff. It doesn't exactly inspire sort of motivation and leadership, you see. And so I mean, in human nature terms, that's how you're approaching yourself sometimes. It's almost as if you're apologizing for being yourselves. And you've done that at times. And so I mean, you know, you're better than that. So your energies tend to go like this, you see. And so, you know, not before you've given yourself a little kick, which you don't need to sometimes. So the thing is it's you're in a different caliber of experiencing life now. And that's because you're simply living and with a stronger intention than what a lot of people have. And so as you realize this more and more, you know, it creates a simplicity within you. Because even though you can have ambitions and you can have desires and you can have, you know, ways that you want to succeed and so on and so forth, you're not locked into it. You're not caught up into it as something that has to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then somehow I'm not satisfied. Instead you realize that, well, hey, I'm this unlimited source of power. You know, it's all at my fingertips. So it really comes down to the way I'm leading it and managing it and structuring it. But it's also to know when to, as I'll put it, leave the power alone, stop poking and prodding it, and simply enjoy it. So it's just, you know, I'm on the road. Let's drive. Where are we going? Who cares? Why do we need to have an outcome? Why do we need to have an intention? You know, and as you drive, then, I mean, you know, people often say, oh, we should have gone down that road. It would have been so winter. Oh, we've missed out. We should have turned there. And so people are so caught up. Oh, yeah, but we've got to get there. You know, it's a 5-hour drive. We've got to get there. And so you miss out on you know, the enjoyment of what is. And always thinking about, you know, where you're going or what the result is going to be. And so how do you get caught up into result?
Getting involved in what I physically have to do and thinking more about the outcome than along the process.
Good. Yeah. So, you know, there's always going to be an outcome. So to know that you're going to get the best outcome possible, well then you lead the present, you lead the journey, you put things into the order that serves you best. You know, it's, you know, as you people say, saves time as such. And it comes about in lots of different ways. You know, it's all about how you organize things. You know, some people, you know, they get so caught up into, oh, that's been a bit anal, or that's been a bit too structured, or a bit too perfectionist, and all that sort of stuff. And it depends on the individual. And so you know, for yourselves, it's actually quite good to visit the sort of structures that you feel are important for you to actually live your life by, and the way that you need to prepare and line yourself up for a day or for an event or for an idea, whatever. And if you have a constant dialogue with your higher consciousness, well then you know you're always going to get an answer when you ask. You're always going to get a feeling when it's necessary. You always know, you know, whether you should or shouldn't. And so it doesn't have to come into a reason, or is that the best thing or whatever. I mean, as I always think, well, if you treat everything as sacred, well then you realize that you're recognizing the high vibe of everything. But then you also recognize that there are some situations that are more palatable to your mind, your body, and your spirit. And so, you know, when you see that, then you understand how automatically things sort of step in your alignment because they present themselves to you. So you eliminate this need to wonder and ask and figure out. Instead, you just realize that, well, you know, the more organized I am, the better the laws of attraction are going to work for me. And then it just comes down to a matter of what you people have termed as free will. But you know, one of the thing is, and this is where you come into this quite a bit, you're so feared of missing out, and I might not achieve that, or I might not accomplish that. You see, and okay, that's a karmic thing, but that's so ingrained from your family and your upbringing. So there's all these rules and systems that have been established within you. You see, And okay, those are good because those are important for you. And so for yourself, you have a structure, but you're more aware from very early on about the bigger picture. So you've always had that sensitivity to the something more. And so for yourself, as you realize that you've needed to bring more discipline in and more structure in, that's why you brought her into your life. Otherwise, you could have easily just floated around and never really sort of created a core for yourself that could have established you on a higher level. And that's why your energies are so compatible, because each of you represents a vibration that's so important. So in a way, it's like he's taught you how to feel, and she's taught you how to think on different levels, you see. So now you've got this consciousness, which is the blend of these vibrations. And of course now, at the end of the day, it simply comes down to, what should we do with this? What should we do with our power? What should we do with our feeling? And don't see it from a point of, the ultimate something, the right something. Remember, everything's out there. Everything's possible. So it really comes down to what you feel you recognize as individuals, but also what you recognize as a collective energy, because your path is yours, yours is yours. And it's important to keep encouraging each other into, the things that you need to pursue, as much as collectively what you actually want to create together. And of course, as people blend more and more in as a couple, well then their vibrations become very similar. So your road tends to be the same road. But it's still important to recognize, I just have to go over here for a second. I automatically saw from your aura, it's about how you choose to make peace with yourself. So sometimes you don't have to seek a solution, or seek for an answer, or seek for a remedy. What you do is you stand still and you find ways in your thoughts, in your actions, in your feelings, to find a way of relieving yourself of that vibration and energy. And that's an easier way than putting pressure on yourself. And so when you feel something, again, getting back to what I said before, when you feel something, you created that feeling. And understand, people's physiological systems can create depressions and upsets and all that sort of stuff. But when you get into the mood swings, as you call it, then it's not so much about in what way am I out of order, but what are the ways I'm paying attention to myself? What are my feelings, what are my thoughts about myself that are allowing me to experience these extremes at times? So why do I need extreme? Why do I need to go off the road every so often? Why not just be on the road? And again, it comes down to that leadership energy. So you lead your life through your ideas, you lead your life through your thoughts. But if you are knowing that you are God doing that, and you really live that in the way that you are, then the vibration of that just pulls all the right threads in. And so that you find that the mood swings just don't happen. So you create this sense of sedateness within you. And you become very sincere in your beliefs in yourself. But when I'm saying this, part of the aura is going, you worry about it. So when you worry about it, then automatically you would get into some sort of energy of what's wrong. And of course, the moment you get into what's wrong, then you throw that out into your aura, you sense that. So you think something's wrong, I have to fix it. So therefore there's a situation that has to occur before you can move on. So then you sort of pulled over on the side of the road, we got to get this sorted out before we can move on again. And so that's where, the fine line of energy is very, very there for you at this point. And you realize the subtlety of how all vibrations are actually working. And it's not difficult to practice this, because it's really, that it's really you going around in life with all the lights on. And what I mean when I say that is if you take the word enlightenment to mean to be in light of life, then you realize that you're just simply going through your life, mind, body, and spirit, with all the lights on, which means that you just see everything, you know everything, it's just there. Nothing is going to worry you, nothing is going to distract you, whatever is whatever, it's just there, it's got its place, it's not wrong, it's not right, it is what it is. But then what you have instead is that you have a focus that gives you what you're wanting. And therefore, all the other stuff that might work against you will not distract you, because your focus is on something that you want, and that empowers you and that expands you. And so you don't feel threatened or challenged by what might happen, or the negative things, as you people call them. You know, it's just, well, here's the road of life. You know, it's all there. There's my doubt. There's my fear. There's my mood swings. There's whatever. Oh, yeah, they're there. But because I've got to focus on who I am as God, then I know that there's no way I'm ever going to go down that road. And the thing is, for human beings, is that when they don't have a focus, if they don't have anything that they're looking towards, then they stop. And the moment you stop, then all those other things go. You know, and try to get your attention. Hi, come and have coffee with me. I want to be your friend. You know, and so you know, and then this is where you get distracted. The moment you take a little cursory glance over there, and it's like, boom, you get sucked up into that energy. See? Yeah. And so whereas you always have that intent right in front of you. No, I'm God. I know you're there, but I'm not going to pay any attention to you in that way. I mean, you can acknowledge it. Oh yeah, hi, how are you? I'm busy, sorry. And then you just get on with how you want things to be. And you know, human nature is very remiss when it comes to thinking that they've got to remove things to change things. You just got to let things be what they are. And then, by allowing that to happen, then that's when you understand how you can organize that situation. That's how you understand how you can get the best result of something, or the best way to approach something. Whereas if you straight away panic and get into what's wrong, what needs to be fixed, all that stuff, that feeds all those vibrations and those energies, you see. But you know, human fear gets people into that place because they become afraid of the situation that they get involved in. I'm afraid of my mood swings. I'm afraid of my doubts. I'm afraid of my cancer. I'm afraid of my worries. I'm afraid of my relationship issues, and so on and so forth. I'm afraid I don't have a direction. I'm afraid I don't know who I am. And so, of course, you project anything like that, then you're just going to create more and more of that sort of stuff. And you, too, do not have the need to create that sort of energy at all. And it's just not necessary. It's just not needed. If you want to go about it, fine. That's just a choice that you're making. But it's not something that needs to be done in your case, because you don't need to visit that pond. So it's there, but you don't need to go swimming in it. So instead you think, well, yeah, I did that, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm a better person for it, but now I don't need to do that anymore. And because I've graduated. It's like, you know, when you do swimming lessons, and you're doing, when you're a child and you get into the little pool, and you do learn to paddle and float and all that sort of stuff, and then you graduate into the big pool, and so in that initial fear, you know, and then suddenly it's like, wow, you know, I'm in deeper water now, but I can swim. And so life is always going to be like that. You've always got your little training period, but you also have to know when to step away from that and just get on with being gods, get on with being the creators, get on with what you want. And again, you don't necessarily have to have all the time a plan either. So what you do is that you know that there are periods in your life which you know that you have to focus on some things, but it's that thing I said to before about don't get so caught up into the result. Don't get so caught up into the destination. And instead be more involved in the now, so that therefore you're aware of what really makes sense to you. When you find yourself straying, as they say, then you haven't really strayed. You know, I mean, this is the thing that you know, to be in that God energy 24/7, you know, it's not always about, you know, thinking of that or doing something spiritual or whatever people feel that they need to do. It's a state of presence. And so you know, what you do is that you get involved in a state of thought to organize, to establish that intention within your system. And so you know that there are times through the day when you can affirm something that keeps that alignment. And then gradually what happens, of course, is everything about you just knows what you're doing. So you know, you put your, let's call it your dream team together, which is simply made up of all the aspects of yourself that know what you're doing. And then, of course, the more you find ways of practicing that, the more that you're involved in that vibration, the more you're involved in that vibration, the more that vibration becomes something that is you. And the more it becomes you, the more you resonate that frequency. And the more you resonate that frequency, the more it goes and replicates itself. So you gather around you more and more of that vibration, not just in frequencies that are, you know, non-physical, but in people, in things you like to do, in things that inspire you. So what you end up doing is simply aligning everything up in such a way where quite unconsciously you're being fed the idea of your God nature all the time. So those unconscious aspects of yourself pick up on that. They pick up on that, send you the feelings through happinesses and joys and contentness, and there you have it. So simple, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's not. It's called living. You know, and so when you live on that level, then it just comes down to, as I've said to you both in the past, the day structure, the way that you're involved in that day's energy, basically. See, but you're still of the mind where you're still seeing it as a struggle, or you're still seeing it as a problem. And of course, that's the human nature in you stepping in there and going, "Hi, I'm your problems. I'm your trouble." You know, and so of course, you know, it sort of stands there, and I'm laughing because I always look at little visions when I come. So there you are, being all godlike, and here this other part of you steps in, and she's got black leather trousers on and boots, and she's got a black leather jacket on, and her hair is all sort of curly like this, you see, and she's got red painted nails, and you know, she's a bit of a girl, really, you know, and this sense of, you know, don't muck with me sort of attitudes. and so he likes this. Yes, please. and so well, there's room for conversation about that later, I suppose. In the privacy of your own driving. but I mean, this is the thing. There are all these different aspects. So when that aspect steps in, you turn to her and you go, "Girlfriend," you know, as they say these days, you know, "Hey, welcome," and then you find a way of leading her, so she's not your enemy. And so it's about recognizing that don't ever think of anything as about you that you should be rid of. It's actually letting everything be there. And that's, again, it's not a secret, but that's the way to understand where to position aspects of yourself. You accept that. I've done that. I've thought that. I felt that. I experienced that. I failed in that, on all those sorts of things. That's okay. I'm accountable. I take responsibility. And then when you do that, then I forgive that. I forgive that aspect of myself. And by doing that, you change the vibration. So therefore, suddenly the frequency of that, it no longer looks for ways of replicating your old experiences and old actions and stuff. You simply realize, okay, well, it was what it was. I'm accountable. I take responsibility. I made peace with it. I released myself from that vibration. And therefore it changes the frequency. And then what happens is that you get flooded with ideas or feelings about being inspired to do something different or to present yourself in a different way. And that's actually interesting saying that for both of you. This is a time where you look very much, how do I need to present myself to the world at this point? And when I look at how I choose to present myself to the world, it's not so much about what does the world need from me, but as I present myself in a certain way, then what am I doing is I'm organizing the world in a way where I understand what I'm actually receiving from it. So I'm actually creating my experiences. And I'm positioning everybody where they need to be. I'm positioning everything where it needs to be. And that's why some people see UFOs and some don't. That's why some people, you know, stop and you know, see this beautiful bird fly by that hasn't been seen for 50 years, but someone else doesn't. And because it's all that alignment, you see. And so it's all about what experiences do I choose to have. So this is something that I would like you both to be conscious of as individuals and as a collective. You know, what experiences do I feel, mind, body and spirit, would I really like to have? And as a couple, what experiences would we really like to have together? And sometimes you'll have an experience that you don't, but you didn't need it, but you needed to share it with her. And you could go, oh, I wish I'd seen that.
Yeah.
Or you can say, oh, wow, that's awesome. What an amazing thing for you. You know, what was that all about for you? Mm. And so it takes on a whole different vibration and energy, basically. And so you find ways of sharing with each other experiences. And you know, people, again, it comes down to, oh, I missed out. Oh, if only I'd been there, you know, sort of stuff. And you know, I always say, you're exactly where you need to be. There's no mistake where you are, who you are, how you are. It's exactly the way you want it to be. And that's very difficult for human nature to actually understand. Particularly when, you know, you're dying of cancer, or your mother's died, or you know, you failed your exams, or whatever, you know. And when these things happen, you know, again, it's like, well, what am I going to do with this response? What am I going to do with that energy? And so you guys are offering each other more of each other now. So by doing that, it's also saying, well, what are we going to do with this together? There's more of us now than what we were when we first met. So therefore, that means that we've got more experiences to have, and more life to create, and more options, and more opportunities. And of course, you'll keep on doing that. So when you stop working on being God and just simply live it and be it, then you find the naturalness of what makes sense to you. And occasionally, director and guide her and all that sort of stuff. But the way you see it and feel it and understand it is different from the way she sees it. And sometimes she just doesn't get what you're going on about. And so don't try to explain it to her. She doesn't speak the language. So this is where it's okay to just, like I said before, just hear. But knowing that the words are a vibration. You might say, hey, read this book. So you read the book and you just didn't get anything out of it. And so I didn't understand that. Oh, no, but maybe you didn't quite see this, and, try this. And I did, but I just didn't see where it was. So it's not about being frustrated. It's just about realizing, oh, well, that's just where her soul is at this particular point. And then 6 months down the track, you pick it up again. And it's like, well, I got what you mean now. Think about it. What you know now as God is far more than you ever have in your whole life since you met him and since you met me. And so, and I have that effect on people. So it's about, don't push the boat. It's like letting people, find their little zone. But it's also about learning how to speak each other's language as, you're evolving and expanding together. And this just happens quite naturally if people let it happen. Like, again, using Blair as an example, he's learned how to speak Kay's language. Because when she talks, it just is a whole lot of jumble sometimes. Sometimes it's very coherent, but sometimes it's not. But he knows exactly what she's saying. Because he's learned how to speak her language. And it's not a language of words, it's a language of feeling, it's a language of the soul. So therefore you actually step into a place in that person's vibration where you'll go beyond the confusion, you're able to put it into order because you've learned how to speak the language by being the soul, by being that God vibration, you see. And then it just sort of like makes sense. And so when you get into that sort of vibration, you see this with couples, in normal circumstances. The longer they're together and the more they evolve together, the more they have this little private language that's going on. So you actually establish, and you guys have already done this yourself, you've established a little bit of telepathy going on between the two of you. A bigger feeling, a knowingness that is there. And so, and that's just the familiarity of and the blend of energy. So and when you realize that it's also part of your intention to do so, well, then you realize that, you got to be a lot more vocal about it sometimes, in regards to, well, this is who I am now. Then it just opens up a lot more possibilities and it defines you from a higher perspective. And that's so important to be able to do that. And, you can look at members of your own families who just will never do that and how their lives will be what it is. So as I'll put it, they'll be God's doing it their way, but you are God's doing it your way. And that's where it's important that you don't get locked into worrying about how other people are and what their journeys are. And there's that thing I said before about respecting that that's that soul and that's their journey, and they are God's doing it their way. And it doesn't mean that you don't have a role to play, but what you do is that you look carefully at what you think that is, and you feel carefully what that is, so that therefore you don't get pulled into other people's need to be less, simply because they're afraid. And you guys are going to keep on expanding in your consciousness on all levels, which means you're going to keep being more and more and more and more. And that means that, you move away from some people's energies and ideas, as you've already discovered that. And so in some cases you find ways of adapting into that and creating new possibilities with that. But in some cases it's like, no, I just can't go down that road anymore. I don't want to make that link anymore. And that's when people, may sometimes say, I just don't understand you now. Or I don't know where you're coming from, or you don't fit into a criteria. And this is the thing that I really like. It's you're just not fitting into any criteria now. And that's a good thing. And your human nature is very good at, where can I position myself? Which, how do I define myself? And why do you need to? But think about it, most people are defining themselves because of other people. And so, in the reality of it, you don't actually have to do that. But because of the structures that humans have created, I need you to be this so I can feel comfortable. I need to know that you are this so I can feel good about myself.
Yeah.
And as opposed to, well, this is who I am. And of course, isn't it interesting? When people do be who they are, then they get accused of being self-righteous or self-centered or egoic and all that sort of stuff. And whereas all you're doing is, well, I'm just being myself. And stop being so smart. All those sorts of attitudes, you see. But of course, that just pushes other people's buttons because it's making them uncomfortable. Because what are you doing? You're projecting a vibration that says alignment. I know who I am, which means on some subconscious level, it makes them realize that they're not. So, of course, it just shakes them up, riles them up. So rather than go, oh, well, they inspire me to be more, then, oh, I don't like that couple. That made me feel very good. And so, and then, of course, you can sometimes think, oh, God, what have I done? What have I said? Whereas all you've done is just being yourself. Remember that phrase? Truth needs no publicity. So it's the art of being. So that's what you have to practice, the art of being. And by practicing the art of being, then you realize that, what I said to before, you no longer have to seek for an answer or seek for a solution or seek for a reason. You stand where you are, you be accountable for what you've created, and then you allow yourself to organize the energy in a way where it is better for you. And just carry on in that way. And so people pay far too much attention to what was rather than what is. And what was only what was because of the thought that someone had about it. And so what is the same. What is simply because that's an idea that you're paying attention to. But if you want to pay attention to an idea of what was, then how could you possibly know what is? And then how could you possibly know where you're going? Because then you get into this big jumble and tangle of energies and ideas, as opposed to just the simplicity of, it is, I am, I can. I mean, think about it. People created it now. They created all these iPhones and iPads and iPods and all this sort of stuff. But what about creating I can? And I will. And I am. That's what you should be focusing on instead of all these distractions that people have.
I like that.
Questions. Your little red dot's gone off, by the way.
Oh, that's flat battery then.
Ah, poor battery. I have this thing about draining batteries, by the way. I should have told you that. I remember when we used to be in a studio where we were doing a radio program, and I used to wallop all the sound system to bits when I would come in, you see. And someone was filming me once, and it was a battery that should have had 2 hours, and within 15 minutes it went.
Oh, wow.
Like